Welcome back, ladies and gents, boys and ghouls. I'm not doing that. Fuck that intro. I'm not. I thought I had something. We're not doing that. I might keep this in the
come
podcast,
with a
though.
blah blah blah.
I was trying to come up with a funny intro. Welcome back, everyone, to Movies After Midnight. I'm your host, Evelyn. I am joined once again by Erynn.
It's me. Hello.
And we are talking about The Scars of Dracula. So I get to use the word stigmata in a podcast again.
Oh my gosh. I think this one is a really good summarization of how I felt the last few weeks with this eclipse happening.
Yeah, it's an interesting one in the like timetable, because I guess it had been a couple years, and they, with the Dracula and Frankenstein ones, they kind of like rebooted a little bit, because the Frankenstein, they were always like a double bill kind of, and the Frankenstein movie that came out along with this was like a total reboot where they just went back to the first story. And this one kind of does that, but it also doesn't really. And that is the first of a long line of things that make this an odd movie to talk about.
Which I have to just start one second. Sorry about that, everybody. I just have to start with saying I do like the director. He was literally the assistant director on The Lady Vanishes, and he directed one of my favorite Marilyn Monroe films. That film is called Don't Bother to Knock. I really like him, but this was wild.
Is that Roy Ward Baker?
Yeah.
I wrote down in my notes, he's my third favorite director after Roy Ward Butcher and Roy Ward Candlestick Maker. And that's the dumbest joke I've ever written in my notes. And that I wrote that down. I was like, I have to share this with people. This is too good.
It's just too good. That's so funny.
So that's the energy I'm entering this movie with.
Evelyn and I are really...
I don't even feel real right now. We're in another dimension.
I feel like I got bit by Dracula and I'm in the transition into becoming a vampire.
See, we have done podcasts with elective substances before. This isn't, for me, this isn't one of them. I'm just insane right now, and I
can't
want
say
you
the
guys
same
to know
for that. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah,
I can't say the same.
So with the reboot thing, because the story kind of like almost doesn't really, because the last couple were very like closely tied in continuity,
fed into each other. They kind of like
This one kind of just restarts a little, except it doesn't, because it's like, it's not a full restart, because the intro reminded me of, after Bruce Lee died, there's a whole subgenre called Bruceploitation movies, and one of the most, not iconic isn't the word.
Infamous?
Remembered, one of the ones that sticks out in my mind is Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave, which was filmed, I believe, Dragon Lee was the guy, because there are a bunch of like Bruceploitation leading guys, and they all had their own but he it was filmed, and it was like a standard down to earth like crime movie. Like, he comes to the US and it's like fairly grounded, it's like 100% grounded in reality, but then Bruce Lee dies while they're doing post, so they add a sequence at the start where lightning strikes Bruce Lee's grave and he jumps out, and that was their marketing, where they're like, this guy's Bruce Lee, I guess.
Jesus Christ.
But this it was horrible. Terrible. But it's not as horrible as the clones of Bruce Lee, but we'll get into that another time.
That is just,
but the intro here kind of gave me that vibe, because you have like it's like Dracula's castle, and my favorite part of the movie, they have this animatronic kind of bat fly in and like spit
Yeah,
and it like
loved the
spits
bats.
blood on him, on his like ashes, and they reform into Christopher Lee, and he like goes out and looks at the like town or whatever, and it's like Dracula's alive again, and then the movie kind of starts in earnest. And so it's like this little like take it or leave it thing where they're like, oh, by the way, Dracula's alive again.
Yeah, it also kind of felt like a trailer cut version of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It didn't feel very grounded, and I think it starts the film off on a weird note because in a way the whole film feels like a trailer.
Yeah. Well, I was saying that's what also I don't know if it's a reboot, but considering it was probably made with the idea of like you may or may not have seen the last several. It's like there were like these kind of big set piece moments from a few of them that stuck out in people's minds, and they were like, we'll just chuck all of that into one script and kind of like string it together somehow. And so it's like not as cohesive in a way.
Yeah, and in a way, like, all of the other ones are like kind of stage play-esque takes where like they're all a little similar but a little different.
Yeah.
This one just felt like not unique at all.
Yeah,
Except for the vampire bats. Loved
yeah,
those.
I will say this movie doesn't muck about. Like it gets, at least at the start, it gets like right into things, because there's a girl who's dead, and a guy like brings her to the town, and he's like, Dracula killed my daughter, and they're like, let's go burn his castle to the ground. And then they go burn his castle to the ground. And I'm like, we're starting on all cylinders.
I gotta say though, I thought Paul's angle was so surreal.
Yeah. Well, before we get, I was gonna say the other thing that kept me into this movie was so during that sequence, they're like trying to get past Dracula's like servant Clove, who is different from the Clove we saw in the last time, but he kind of plays the same role. And he is played by Patrick Troughton, who is most probably well known for being the second Doctor in Doctor Who.
Oh my god.
And he was also like the priest in the first Omen movie, but I never saw that, and I've watched a lot of Doctor Who.
I'm gonna go see the first Omen tomorrow.
Oh Jesus. Oh Jesus. But and then you can write a comparison on what Antichrist movie was better, the first Omen or
Scars of Dracula.
Immaculate.
Oh my god, or Immaculate.
Starring Sydney Sweeney.
Starring Sydney Sweeney. Crazy twist in it that I did not expect.
Yeah.
That's my review.
But yeah, I can't remember what happens, but yeah, Dracula's place is kind of, it's like defended by these bats.
Yeah, which I kind of loved. And they're not the birds' fake bats. They're like kind of like Danger 5-esque, like that kind of
like,
you know.
It's like a puppet on a wire that swings down. Yeah. And they were like, they must have spent a lot of money on the puppet, because they were like, we are making this thing is getting so much screen time.
I was kind of obsessed.
It was, honestly, I kind of dug it. I was there for the bat was the breakout character of this movie.
It was very like if you were to do a live action Scooby-Doo that was like in the 60s. And they're like little bats. They would have to be like that. It was kind of like how Rob Zombie did them in the Monsters movie.
Shit, that there's a
Zombie
non-zero
did
chance
like
he did it, and he's seen this movie and it was taking influence from it.
Oh, he's probably 100% seen this movie. I also felt a stylistic difference into this one. We're definitely into this like late 60s, 70s.
Yeah, but that's another thing we get in the weird pacing, because it's like, oh, by the way, Dracula's back, and then we get this vignette of these villagers burning down Dracula's castle, and then Dracula like kills some people in the village in revenge. So it's like, by the way, Dracula's back. By the way, he's terrorizing this village. And now we get introduced to like our main characters and their arc.
And that was the part that felt like kind of like a trailer, because they kind of speed through it super fast.
Yeah. It's like the movie has ADHD. Also, yeah, I feel like this Paul is maybe our least likable Paul in terms of like actions and behavior. I feel like
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Our most normal, average. I hate. Yeah, this Paul was really boring.
well, he's like he's boring in some ways, but then he's just kind of a dick in other, or not a dick, but he's like he does not have good moral fiber. he our introduction to him is I think
know what
it's,
they say, a good character is built on their flaws and making the wrong choices.
yeah.
So I guess
he that if a character is only flaws, I don't know how that works. But
I also love how they keep using Paul. That's just surreal to me.
Yeah, because what is it? There's one, I can't remember. There's a name in the Frankenstein movies. I think there's another one. It's like every Hammer movie has like a couple of names that they just keep cycling back.
There's not a Paul in the Dracula book.
There is,
correct?
No, there's
so
not one.
I am just like, why Paul? I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
It's almost like they were like trying to invent their own narrative archetypes.
I see. They were expanding the genre.
Because there was never a Clove either, and he's shown up in like 2 or 3 of these now.
And Clove is like a cool name though. Paul?
Yeah. What, you
That's just Paul.
But yeah, it's like there's this. I think it's like a birthday party. But our introduction to Paul is that he's skipping out on this birthday party to like hook up with some girl.
And then like,
and this was just a whole awkward scene.
It was so strange. I was like,
because yeah.
Don't get this in the hands of these conservative men.
Jesus.
Don't get this movie in their hands because they like sleep together and then her dad catches them.
Yeah, well, they sleep together and Paul's like, I have to go to the party, but for some reason he doesn't tell. Well, I guess he doesn't tell her that he has to go to a girl's party or something. But she's like, you're going to like leave me and see other women, aren't you? And he's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, you are. And so then her dad gets home.
She's like, please stay, please. Could never beg for a man.
Oh, geez,
I was like, get up, woman.
Stand up, girl.
Stand up. What are you doing?
But then she's like, well, fine. And her dad walks in and she's like, if he won't stay, I'll tell my dad that he assaulted me. And also her dad he's like a burgomaster of this town, but he's dressed like a goofy pirate in like a Captain Feathersword ass outfit.
It's giving like a kids theater, and it's like he's Captain Hook.
Yeah. So like I think they were trying to give him like comparing it to Jack Sparrow doesn't make sense because that didn't exist at the time, but it's like they were trying to give him that like roguish intro where like, oh, he's in trouble with the law and he's hopping in and out of bed with ladies. He's
a little more like a Robin Hood kind of vibe.
Yeah, I get what they were trying for.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the guy's like, you what? Like, I'm gonna send my guys after you. And he like escapes them and gets to this birthday party and gives, I want to say, I wrote her name down later, Sarah, because Sarah and Paul's brother have like kind of a thing, and his brother's insecure because he's like, I bet she just likes Paul way more than me. And but Paul has
I'm like, what's there to like?
Yeah, he has this like locket of he was gonna give her a picture of herself in this locket, which is also funny now that I'm saying it out loud. I didn't think of it at the time, but that's a weird thing to do.
I didn't think of it either, but that's exactly what he does.
But then he's like, "Oh, I
just accepted it."
Yeah, if I question everything that gets thrown at me, we're gonna be here way too long.
No, literally, that's so funny.
But it's like he dropped it and it broke, so he's like, "Oh, I'll take it back and fix it, and then I'll give it to you." And it's basically just to establish that he has this thing, that's one of those things where it's interesting when you can tell like a scene was added for like a utilitarian purpose. like not necessarily to advance an arc, but like we need this so we know why something else happens later.
But honestly, from the point Paul leaves to like when he enters the town, it is like the most surreal pacing through, and like each scene feels like it's in a different like film. Like each little vignette of the moment, there's like him running away, then him getting to the inn, then him getting kicked out. They all feel like vastly different movies, but they're happening in succession.
Yeah, which I get kind of like, because the town authorities show up and he like jumps out the window to escape them, and then the carriage he jumps on top of happens to take him to this village that Dracula was terrorizing. And it like, I kind of get how you could say it's supposed to be like a hero's journey kind of thing, where like the world that he's from and the world that he ends up in are like feel drastically different to like illustrate how lost he is.
If there is one thing though, of these movies, the people in town do not want to help.
Yeah, well because everyone's like,
they are over it.
Yeah, because because he's a stranger, so they're like, we're not talking to you. But then this girl, this is again where we get like archetypes, because we have the tavern maid who's kind of like down to clown, and that's been a thing in like 2 or 3 of these.
God gives his silliest battles to his funniest and she's soldiers.
Like, oh well, I just moved here, so I can let you in. And they're gonna smash, like they're full on like dirty talking, and then the tavern keep comes in and he's like, hey, who the fuck's this guy? And she's like, oh, he said he needed a bed. And he's like, get out of here. And they're like, just stay away from the castle. And he's like, well, maybe I'll go to the castle if I can't sleep in town. And they're like, don't go to the castle. And he's like, well, I'm gonna go to the castle. And yeah, that's it. He walks off, and it's like Clove is like hunting in the forest, and he leaves the carriage parked, and Paul's like, I'm gonna sleep in this parked carriage. This is a great plan with no flaws. And that ends up carrying him to Dracula's castle. Which is, it's a very, you know what? This movie is a good example. Something I heard about script writing is you need to remove the sentence "and then" from your script. Like, you want things to be like, this happens, so this happens, while this is happening, this leads to this. And if you ever say "and then," it's because you don't have like proper connective fiber. This movie says "and then" all the time.
All the time. And it would be different if Paul was like a loving renegade, like fumbling his way through. But he's just the worst.
We don't really get enough time, because I think you can see that he has positive qualities, but we don't really spend a lot of time on those, so we don't really connect with him.
And I couldn't tell if like the film was trying to play up his like sex appeal or something and make it like more of like a sexy movie.
Yeah,
because it was definitely more extreme. Like, would you argue? Would you say that? Would you like say? Yeah, because I thought it was more exploitative.
Yeah, it felt like they were trying. It felt like there was like, I couldn't put it together, but it almost felt like they were trying to say something with like the way Paul kind of is able to like smooth talk his way into these, like, because this was the thing when he arrives at the castle and Dracula's like, oh hey, yeah, you can stay here. The way because he talks to Dracula's like bride first, and then Dracula lets him in, and it's almost like kind of a counter to like, it's always the women who let him in, and then the man that like deals with him, and there's almost like there's almost like a thematic parallel where he's like a lesser version of what Dracula is, where he's like the guy who manipulates the women to get what he wants, but he's not quite at the Dracula level, and so that's why he like, there's something there, but I'm not sure what.
No, I see what you mean though, because it's interesting how like, you know, Dracula gets all mad at him for being with his mistress, and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of like the tavern keeper is like, hey, you're gonna get with this girl, get away.
We call that repetition with variance at the big
Also,
USC.
as the
Just
carriage
kidding.
is stowing away, the carriage is going away. We see Clove come back from his hunting, and over his shoulders he has a lamb with like bloody wool, and I'm like, love that very subtle biblical imagery.
No.
But uh, but yeah, so there's this bride, and she's like, yeah, you can stay here, and Dracula's like, yeah, you can stay here. Half the castle got burnt down, and he's like, why did half the castle get burned down? And he's like, don't worry about it. And then it's it's funny because it's been a few days, and so I just wrote bride tries to snog him. Yeah, she shows up to Paul's room and she's like, hey, let's smash, and Paul's like, heck yeah. And then
Every man.
yeah, and then afterwards she's like, I'm gonna be a vampire and feed on him, and that's when Dracula shows up, and it's kind of this whole dynamic was kind of like the start of the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Except in this one, I've heard other critics talk about this, where they're the fact that Dracula stabs her to death. Like, he doesn't like throw her aside or drink her blood or anything, but he just pulls out a knife and like
He's really hurt. She
full on
cheated
Norman
on
Bates
him.
is on her.
She cheated on him in
Yeah,
his
I feel like-
home. And
I feel
he's
like-
hurt.
But I feel like thematically you could get something out of that, where there's like the knife and the penetration and the like presence of another male threat and whatnot. And maybe I'm just reaching at straws here, but I'm just pointing stuff out so you folks at home can
So you people.
yeah. I was like, that sounds very like dismissive. I love you guys.
We love you. I read it as Dracula being hurt, which is really funny because most Pauls are just like I don't know why this Paul is being like equated to Dracula so much. Like, he feels like the most on the same playing field as Dracula than he has in any other movie. But I don't know why they're doing that, because it just made the movie not very interesting.
Yeah. Do you think it's like a sign of the times too, as we move into like the 70s, and there's maybe like the idea of what a clean heroic guy is like more and more diluted as like the standards kind of change and stuff?
Yeah, I guess so. Perhaps it's that, or like maybe it's, I couldn't tell like what the characterization of Paul was trying to say, because it doesn't really feel like he changes.
Yeah, well, because he's also, honestly, it's kind of a psycho thing, isn't it? Because he's kind of like the Janet Leigh, because at this point he's like Dracula stabs her to death and leaves and locks the door, and so Paul's like stuck in this room with this dead woman, and he like ties some blankets over the edge to like climb down to the next window. This felt very like an adventure game, like a puzzle you have to solve.
It really did.
I think in the Frankenstein game I played, there's literally a puzzle where you do this. But
Oh my god.
he climbs down, but then he just ends up in like Dracula's little casket room. And then like that's the last we see of him, because then the rest of the movie focuses on his brother. So it's literally just the
really
psycho
is.
setup.
It totally is. That is so, I'm so dead. That's a good comparison.
Also, yeah, Clove on cleanup duty again. he's just dealing with all this shit.
Well, yeah, it's kind of strange though that he dies like the way he does, because it really feels like when him and his brother are arguing, it feels like he's the one that has to change, not his. It's very surreal.
Yeah,
because it's kind of like because then it kind of becomes like a his brother losing his innocence kind of thing, because his brother is such a like straightforward kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, and especially because like they don't even really have the tension of like, does she like Paul more than him? Because right after the party, they're like talking, and they say something about, man, I hope Paul's okay, and he's like, he'll be fine. This happens to him all the time, and they say something, but she like they either like she kisses him on the cheek or something, where it's like the vibe is very much, oh yeah, you know, it's still us, like over him or whatever. And so it's like they kind of like there's not even an arc there really.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually they're like yeah, he's been gone for a while, so they eventually kind of retrace his steps, and they go to the same diner, and the same or the not the diner, tavern, and the tavern keeper's like, we're not talking
episode
to you.
of Riverdale.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. And the same tavern girl's like, oh, I can tell you where he went. And that's how tavern girls talk. These movies have...
It is, you're right.
And they get followed by the animatronic bat. Love when the animatronic bat shows up.
We stan.
Yeah, what I'm trying to remember how this all goes.
It's like Dracula wants the wife, and then
Yeah.
Clove also wants the wife.
Yeah, well
Everyone wants the wife.
That's a weird arc they give Clove a weird arc because Paul leaves the picture of Sarah like that he was going to get fixed, and Clove is cleaning up and he finds it and he kind of fixates on it, and then later when Sarah and Paul's brother show up, it takes him a few scenes to recognize her, which is also interesting. But once he sees it's her, and he's like, I don't want anything bad to happen to her because I have this picture of her. And it's like a really odd, like, half arc for him.
Yeah, and this idea that, like, I mean, there's this really interesting, because, I mean, it feels like Dracula stabs this woman to death in a very, like, that feels like a very, like, involved sort of death. Like, it feels like there's, like, something more serious there to feel like, when you feel like you have to do that. But, then Clove, like, there seems to be this through line of, like, love being able to conquer, or, like, love being, like, super important, or, like, maybe not love, but, like, I don't know, like, does that, it's a little half-baked.
Yeah,
but...
maybe that's the foil between Paul and the brother, is that Paul, he's a lover for, like, sexual sake, and the brother is, like, a lover for the right reasons or whatever.
That would make sense. That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what happens now, because this is the movie. Like, in the last 40 minutes, the movie felt so much longer.
Oh my god, the last 40 minutes of this movie was like the movie slowed to a crawl.
And I couldn't tell you why exactly. It was just everything was so much slower all of a sudden.
It was the way everything was blocked. It's because, like, you had to see everybody walk everywhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
sometimes you could just cut into a new place.
Yeah, honestly. But also, I think it's because of the way they set up so much so quickly at the start. You get used to that faster pace, so everything, once they settle in, it starts feeling slower, I think, just by contrast.
Usually it's like the reverse, where, like, it kind of starts off slow and then it gets going. But, you know, I appreciate Hammer for taking risks.
But, yeah, so Dracula does his usual thing, and he's like, oh, I don't know where your brother is. Never heard of that guy. You could stay here, though. And so they stay there, and we get, again, this has happened in, like, other Hammer Draculas at this point. But Christopher Lee is so good at conveying, like, his Dracula's disgust and discomfort when someone has a cross on them. Because he's like, Sarah has this little crucifix necklace, and so as Dracula's kind of able to get her to come over, he's, like, repelled, and then Clove goes up, and what is it? And Dracula's like, that cross, get it away, and it's like he's about to, like, vomit or something. And,
honestly,
like, Christopher Lee
me too, when I see a cross. Just kidding.
No,
to all my Christians out there, I love you.
But yeah, and then that's when Clove, he goes to take the cross off her, and then he recognizes her as the girl from the picture, and he's like, I can't do that because she's a pretty lady. Clove is
so in love.
Clove is just an internet simp. He simps for her, and that's why he can't do anything.
I did hear an online essay today about how simping is non-consensually wanting somebody.
Shit, that's deep.
And I was like, yeah. So that's just support your Clove being a simp analogy.
Yeah. Yeah, which again, I thought it was very weird because it's like, because also Dracula just kind of lets him run off instead of being like, get the fuck back in there.
Dracula's over it. Because also Dracula likes Sarah, and so it's interesting to see Dracula be more on the defense.
Yeah,
he's a little like, it's super interesting because he's usually a little bit more like sexually empowered or something. You know, he usually doesn't really care, but he seems so on edge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Also, we talked about this, but Christopher Lee was powdered the fuck up in this movie. Like, he had so much, like...
gagged. That Cody Airspun powder, they fucking used a container a fucking day for something.
Literally.
It's literally so powdered.
It's like that meme where everyone's doing the, like, who ate my powdered donuts? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, guys, who ate the powdered donuts?
I'm like, how many stage lights did you have on to make him, like, what is the need for that?
Yeah, I mean,
he also has really red lips, too.
I get, like, he's dead, so he's supposed to be, like, pale and stuff, but that, yeah.
But this is a bit extreme compared to the previous.
Also, I'm trying to remember, because this is, so, we don't always record our podcasts immediately after watching the movie.
Like, 99%.
In my notes, I wrote, the soup, followed by several question marks. And I don't know what I meant by that.
I don't remember either.
But I remember there was something about soup, and I was like, what's the significance of this soup?
The soup.
And I just want you guys at home to know, so when you're watching, you can get back to me on that. On the movie that I watched.
Maybe there was some vampire bat soup.
There was something like not Paul, the brother, he reacted to it, and I was like, is there like some Dracula power in the soup? Oh, he had Clove bring her up some soup, and the brother runs up and he's like, no, don't take the soup. And they never really closed that, or I think I missed something, because I was like, why is the soup dangerous? Does he think they're being poisoned? Because that doesn't make sense if you're Dracula.
That was, you know what? That was an odd one. And then,
yeah. And then...
it just happens. You know what? Now that you described it, it happens and kind of slows the movie to a crawl for a second.
Yeah.
It's like a Marx Brothers gag.
Yeah, because this all happens, like, the whole, like, neck thing or crucifix thing happens, and she doesn't really remember it until the following morning, and they kind of put things together, and then Clove shows up, and he kind of helps them escape, because, again, he's, like, sympathetic to her. And then and then they do the thing that everyone does in these movies, and it's kind of goofy, where they're like, okay, so we escaped, but I think we have to go back there now. Because, like, you know, they do that in Star Wars, but in Star Wars it makes a like
well, everybody acts like Dracula is like a threat to the entire world. He is just a threat to the women around.
Yeah, well,
which is very serious. Is very serious. But, like, you know, don't speak for all of them. Maybe some of them want to be with Dracula. Okay.
In this one, he's like, I know my brother's still in there somewhere, and so I have to go back to find my brother. Which I guess, as far as reasons to go back, does make sense narratively.
Little does he know.
Yeah. And then they go talk to the priest of this town. Who's honestly probably the weakest priest we've gotten in any of these Dracula movies.
Oh, yeah. He gets killed by one of the little
Oh yeah,
one of the animatronic bats.
But he basically just lore dumps a bunch, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, vampires work like this. He's Dracula. He's basically the devil. We're gonna want to do something about that.
Five Nights at Freddy's could never.
Yeah, and then he's like, we'll sleep in this church because Dracula won't attack us here. And during that time, the tavern girl is, she's like, well, I don't believe in this stuff. I'm leaving. And the tavern owner's like, you shouldn't do that. And she's like, well, I'm leaving. And
Famous last words.
We get, this scene felt like, I can't remember if it was the last movie or the one before that. That's pretty much the same sequence where the tavern girl is walking home alone and Dracula's carriage chases her down and picks her up. And Dracula gets her and sucks her life juices. Actually, in this one, I wrote Clove's stunt actor picks her up because there's like a wide shot where I'm like, that is definitely not
That's
Patrick
not
Troughton.
him. No, you're so right though. You're so right.
But then, yeah, and she's just dead. I don't think she doesn't like come back as a minion of Dracula or anything.
And I think that's part of why it feels like a slideshow of the previous ones, because it doesn't even do, like, if you're going to copy the previous ones, do it do it interesting. Like, do the whole thing, go all the way. Don't like have it and then half do it.
Yeah. But yeah, and the brother's like, Sarah should stay at this church with the priest. And he's like, tell, because the priest leads him to Dracula's castle, and this is where the priest is. He's kind of lame because he's the brother's like, you go back and watch over Sarah, and he's like, I understand, I've failed you somehow, and he's like, no, I just think it's way smarter if someone's like watching her and making sure everything's okay. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that, and he goes back. He goes back. I'm like, geez, dude. You need to go to therapy once this is over. Oh my god.
I also love the like thread of like people being like, you have to watch this person all night and you have no choice.
Yeah.
That really cracks me up.
Literally.
It's like the second or third time.
Also, I forgot about this. Dracula,
Dracula gets his 8 hours in.
Oh yeah.
In all these movies.
So the brother kind of traces, he goes back and Clove kind of reveals to him, he's like, yeah, Dracula whipped me and I have these gnarly like whip scars on my back. And he's like, he basically convinces Clove to help him and he'll give him the picture.
Yeah.
Which is
real weird.
Like, yeah.
Real
really,
weird.
I don't think Sarah consented to that.
I don't think she did at all.
But yeah, the guy that he doesn't trust lowers him into Dracula's coffin room.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Can I make a point really quick?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to know who Clove was reminding me of this whole time?
Ooh, who?
He was reminding me of Bela Lugosi in that Island of Dr. Moreau movie.
Holy shit.
That's literally the vibe he was kind of giving.
A little bit.
Because he looks like a werewolf the whole time.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say also kind of like Bela Lugosi in the Frankenstein movies.
Oh yeah.
Those last couple where he was like, I can't remember his name in that.
No, you're so right.
But yeah, so the guy he doesn't trust lowers him down into Dracula's coffin room and then pulls the rope back up and he's like, oh my god, the untrustworthy shifty guy betrayed me. How could I have foreseen this?
And Clove is like, these two brothers are such idiots. I got them both with the same thing.
It must run in the family.
Yeah, literally.
And because he's like trying to climb down the wall and his like crucifix that the priest gave him gets caught and snaps off. So that now he's defenseless against Dracula. And we get some funky special effects for the Dracula eyes.
I hated it.
It was like some animation or some shit. It was bonkers.
Wild. It looked like a Monty Python sketch or something. I was like, what on?
Why did it?
I'm watching Flying Circus right now.
And yeah, and during this time we also get the priest is completely ineffectual and gets taken out by an animatronic bat, which, like, you know, the bats are just doing their job. I don't blame them for this.
Five Nights at Freddy's could never.
What's the Freddy song? It was a meme for a while. I can't remember.
You got to get more specific at this point. There's like 20 of them now. Oh my god! Every week there's a new one.
Jeez, you know, you're right. Moving on.
I think the song is "What's New Scooby Doo" coming.
Exactly.
How did Matthew Morrison or not Matthew Morrison?
How did Christopher Lee never show up in a Scooby Doo?
Oh my god! Literally,
we did get Vincent Price in a Scooby Doo. That's where we were like partway there. Which,
like, isn't Vincent Price just Christopher Lee anyway?
Yeah, according to him. Yeah, and then I wrote in my notes, we see Paul Dunban Texas Chainsaw hooked, because he's like impaled on a meat hook like they were in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
He totally was. Yeah.
And which is kind of, I was like,
which he's now been penetrated.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
He's been, yeah.
Yeah. I went to film school.
Dracula's gay.
He's gay.
Why are you gay? Yeah, which it is interesting. Paul doesn't really it's almost like he serves entirely as a misdirect.
Yeah.
Which that's another, I don't know why talented people worked on this movie. I'm not here to hate. I'm not here to be a hater. But
yeah, like I said, I like the director.
Well, actually, I was saying, honestly, I think the thing is, if this would have been the first Dracula movie I saw in this series, I probably would have really liked it. But when you watch them in order and you've seen everything it does done better, it makes it more of a slog, I think, than it would be if you're coming into this one first.
And I guess the other thing is we've been watching them very close together.
Yeah.
And you still wouldn't be watching these super close together.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing is I didn't enjoy this movie, but it's also not that it does anything bad. It's a perfectly okay movie. It's just not as good as like the last two, which were really good.
Yeah,
but
that's real.
I just wanted to underline that. But
they really, and the last two were like exceptionally good, I think, too.
Yeah. But I think something I've been reading about like when you're doing mysteries and horror, a lot of writers get so focused on like tricking the audience that they forget to bring the audience in, because they're like, I think I heard it in terms of game design, where they're like, instead of making an experience for the player, you're trying to beat the player. And I think Paul's arc is a good example of that, where I think he was mostly there so that they could be like, wow, I bet you didn't expect this to happen to this guy. So that like, and then like his character arc was kind of secondary to that shock value. And I think that's why it feels like why we didn't connect with him that much.
That was
maybe
a beautiful explanation.
Maybe that's just a theory.
Point. Again, that's just a theorizing.
A Dracula theorizing. But also, so Sarah escapes the bat, and she books it because they establish that it's like a whole ass carriage ride from the village to the castle.
Yeah.
And she makes it on foot there in a shorter time frame than anyone in the movie has gotten there by carriage.
Books
like,
it.
She's like rolling around at the speed of sound.
I was not expecting a Sonic Adventure 2 reference at a time like this.
It felt appropriate.
I wish I could have had a Chow Garden with Christopher Lee.
That's a series of words.
it would give the same energy as that like Alita Battle Angel like press clip of Christopher or not Christopher Lee, Jesus. Oh my god.
Who is Christoph Waltz but the modern
Christoph Waltz.
But the modern day Christopher Lee, really.
Honestly, put him in one of these, like everybody's milking the Universal monsters this year.
Christoph Waltz would kind of be an interesting take on Dracula, I feel like. Like I don't know like how it would work, but
it's like that clip of him with the Alita Battle Angel where he's like in Japan or something, and he's like, "This is the waifu."
They're
like,
having
hi,
to
are you married?
Yeah, it's like a Vocaloid. He's like,
yeah.
But yeah, Sarah gets to the castle in like record time.
Sarah is so fast.
She had to go
Sorry,
fast.
everyone.
She had to
That
go
was a
fast,
sign.
fast. Sonic X.
Yeah.
And
Should go to IHOP. Sorry.
Yeah, and
I'll
that's
stop.
No, she had to go to Olive Garden because when you're there. This is just a Sonic the Hedgehog podcast now. Forget about Dracula.
Next, we're gonna be covering all the Sonic movies.
Jesus.
I would actually hate that.
Even the Sonic OVA from like 1997
Yes.
or whatever.
Even that one. I think you should stream Dr. Robotnik's Bean Machine next.
I could talk about that after stream. So Dracula is about to kill the brother, and Sarah gets there, and that causes Clove to like step in because he's like, oh, I don't want her to die, and so he like, I think he gets like pushed off the side or something, but he dies saving Sarah basically, and so he gets like a not a full redemption, but like kind of a appropriate death. And then
he gets a little weird with Sarah. That made me a little nervous.
Yeah. And then we get this is another and then something happens moment, because I was like, up until now we've established very strong Catholic themes, but I guess Dracula just got killed by the mighty Thor in this movie because like he just gets like he gets like hit by, there's like a metal rod or something, and he like pulls it out, and then lightning just smites the ever-loving hell out of him. I'm like, I didn't know the god of the Norse god of thunder was operating in this part of the world, but okay, sure. And then he's on fire, and he like flails around on fire for a bit, and it's a solid death, but it comes out of nowhere.
It is pretty wild. I also really like the idea of like, I like how all these horror movies, like, there's always, when there's no idea of what to do, they're like, throw in a lightning strike.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
I mean, you can work that, because I think it represents that kind of like I don't know if this is a term, but it sounds
Deus
really
ex
smart.
Machina.
I was gonna say the absurdity of the divine, which sounds like something an academic would say. I don't know if
That
that's
sounds
a real
like
term.
that sounds like a book title. God damn.
Richard Dawkins, I'm coming for you.
That sounds like an EP, and that you should get like a chest hat that says like.
But it's like these acts of God that can just as easily like bring a monster to life or destroy it, and kind of like, you know, like lightning kind of, because I think that's what it's supposed to symbolize, is like, you know, God stepping in or something, but it like, there's not really a build up to that, so it just feels like absurd and goofy.
Sorry, I'm writing that down. Absurdity of the divine.
Yeah, that's gonna be my legacy.
I'm gonna start a metal band called Absurdity of the Divine.
That's gonna be the name of my memoir.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's the thing. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be able to string words together to sound smart. It's a different skill set.
Also, really quick, I always have the like summary open, just to make sure I remember the order of everything. And there's this line in the summary, and it says, Simon is amazed to see the Count running up the wall outside like an insect. And I was like, I don't think that's what happened in the movie.
No,
I think that's like
it does happen. It happens really
that's like
quickly.
his interpretation. Yeah. But
I
just really love like the like an insect. I'm like, that's like an interpretation of the events,
which
but...
might happen in the book. I'm not sure that yeah, because he climbs up the wall in like a weird way where
certainly
it's like
the first time it happened in these.
He's got like Dracula powers.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting.
It was extremely random, I felt like. Because he's characterized as extremely physically agile, but like that was like, there was not an Assassin's Creed like plant earlier in the franchise.
Yeah, it's where I think we're running around this time, we're hitting up against like, as vampires get more and more established in like TV and film, like there's different expectations for how they work, whereas these movies have always kind of been very loosey-goosey, low stakes. So now they're like, how do we like work stuff in?
It's like you know what? It's so interesting you say that, because it does kind of feel like a late 60s, 70s version of like the Marvel problem, where like the stakes just like aren't enough anymore, or they don't feel like they're enough anymore. So
well,
like,
in the last movie they had to use a stake and a holy prayer. The stakes weren't enough. But that joke was right there. I had to take it.
That was good. No, it was a good one. I respect it. I respect that.
But yeah, that was.
I had to go back and explain. We had to talk about the climbing.
Yeah, I forgot.
Running up the wall
completely.
outside like an insect.
But yeah, but that's the thing, because it was weird to take notes on, because I was like, I don't know what I should be writing down because I can't tell what's important.
Also, it is very and then because like, what is he doing that for?
Yeah,
he's just kind of doing it.
It was written. It feels like they wrote the movie with the spectacle in mind first, and then they strung it all together with a plot. I just hit my mic. I don't know if you heard that.
Yes. Oh, I've hit my mic a couple times. I'm so sorry.
No,
I didn't hear that.
You're
one,
good.
though.
That was just for the folks at home. If you heard a thunk,
great.
that was.
Sorry, everyone. Rest in peace, headphone users.
But yeah, again, I think if this was like your first one, or if you saw it like on TV one night, like you would probably have a pretty good time with it.
Yeah, just that last half hour,
like
was
we did,
tough.
Yeah,
it slows to a crawl. I was like, did an hour go by? I thought this was in one of those hour 30 films.
Yeah, literally. Because it's paced very strangely. I do, yeah. I love Christopher Lee. Love to see Patrick Troughton. Love the animatronic bat.
You know what they said about the continuity? They said that it was a possible reboot just in case Christopher Lee didn't reprise.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
That makes because that would make sense why like they characterized Dracula differently as well.
Yeah, like they wrote it thinking it might not be him, and then he came back. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, I love how they were like, okay, Dracula's gonna be softer and he's gonna climb walls.
Yeah,
like I'm like, okay.
Holy shit.
Did they want like George Lazenby?
I was looking on the Wikipedia page. Howard Thompson of the New York Times reviewed this film, stated audiences should avoid scars of Dracula like the plague, calling it garish, gory junk.
Junk? Garish,
like,
gory junk.
I don't know if I would go that far, Howard.
That sounds like a good tagline.
Honestly, that's something that like a trauma movie or something would put like right front and center on the poster.
Yeah, garish, gory.
Garish, gory junk is going to be the sequel to Absurdity of the Divine.
How did you know that I wrote garish, gory, and junk right under where I wrote Absurdity of the Divine
because
on my iPhone notes?
You said it in the same tone you said.
It's like those times where like you're really high and you're like, this is a good idea, and then the idea in the morning is like good versus evil.
Oh, interesting. Roy Ward Baker also directed The Vampire Lovers for Hammer, which I've heard a lot of people really like, so I'll have to check that one out now.
Oh my god! You know what?
It's a Carmilla one.
A bunch of guys I know have watched that one. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's one of the big like Hammer ones that isn't
It's one of the big like
part of the Dracula
there
series.
are boobs.
Yeah, well, it's I want to say it's got some lesbian subtext, or at least because it's based on Carmilla, and Carmilla had hella lesbian subtext.
Oh wow, are you gonna be cosplaying Carmilla with somebody?
Jesus Christ!
Sorry, that was a. I'm calling you out publicly right now. I'm so sorry.
Good.
We can cut this if you would
Good,
like.
I was gonna say good work trying to call out the person who edits the podcast.
I know, literally. Sometimes
Check
I'm like,
and mate.
sometimes I just like forget we're not just talking to each other on the phone, and that this is being recorded.
Yeah, like you said, it's just porch talk, and we're the audience
We're having a
happens to
yap
be here.
session.
Exactly.
The yap temple is in session.
Exactly. But yeah, so this is Scars of Dracula, and it is the last, I guess, if such a thing can be distilled, the last classic style Hammer Dracula movie. Because we're gonna start we're gonna kind of break away from the formula moving on. So let's see. Okay, yeah, oh shit. The last couple were both 1970. 2 years later, 1972, and that's when things get really interesting for this series.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to see where this one goes. What would you how many blez would you rate the Scars of Dracula?
Out of what bless score?
That's a good question.
1 to how many?
1 to 5.
I'm like rating movies.
Yeah, I realized I kind of put us in that trap.
2.5 blah blah blahs. Well, this is why I don't talk about anything post 80s.
Yeah.
Just in case I have to rate it.
Well, that's why I did say it's certainly not a bad movie. It's just not as impressive as the others.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of movies in my life, and this one just didn't really. She didn't really stand out to me.
Yeah.
In my hands, I have 2 DVDs.
Is that it?
In my hands, I have 1 DVD. That's my America's Next Top Model, like, voting off Scars of Dracula.
I thought you were going there. I wasn't quite sure. Also,
I wasn't sure either.
I was looking. So when you look up the wiki like tree for Dracula stuff, there's like Dracula films, Universal series, Hammer horror films, Nosferatu films, Hotel Transylvania has its own separate section under Dracula films. And I just wanted to point that out real quick.
I think that's hilarious.
But yeah, we're spiraling so off topic now.
No, don't even worry.
That's
I mean, like,
much like the film itself. I have no idea how to end this. We're just gonna throw an abrupt stuff out there.
Oh my God, Evelyn, are you scaling a building like an insect?
Thank you for pointing that out. Our audience can't see.
We gotta describe what we're seeing here on the pod.
Actually, I'm scaling a building like an arachnid. They're different than insects.
I've been dealing with a spider problem. I'm like single, not looking, single intentionally. Been that way for years.
Yep.
But let me tell you, there's nothing like seeing a spider in your house that will make you be like, I want to be a housewife. So that there's a man here to deal with these problems.
That's can I tell you that's as like a practicing trans person who like struggles with my gender identity or my self-image in terms of like gender identity. Dealing with spiders is one of the weirdest ones because it's like, on the one hand, ew, I don't want to deal with this. On the other hand, I've been trained to deal with this. And it's like, do I want the result? Do I want to get results, or do I want to like feel comfortable about myself?
That's so real.
It's a very interesting quandary, but that is nothing.
One of
That's
my
neither here
friends
nor
said
there.
I just vacuum them up, and I was like, that is terrifying. Then then they're in the vacuum.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm terrified of bugs and spiders, but also I have a very like Doctor Who approach to it, where I'm like, even if I'm terrified of it, I can't bring myself to like kill a living creature if I have an alternative. So I always do the catch and release, which I heard like they usually die outside anyway, so like you're not really saving them, but at least I'm not the one who kills them in that case, so I feel better.
I literally, the other day, I saw a spider on my window, moved my whole room around. And then a couple weeks later, the spider came out. And I was like, we had a good thing going. And now I have to take you outside. We could have just continued to coexist. And it was funny because the cats, they knew something was going on, but they didn't know what. So they kept going into the room and being really nervous. Like, whoa, no, what's in here?
They're not spider hunting cats, apparently.
No, they're not. I try. I like pick up Gilda and I'm like, see? But then she's just like, Mom.
So now I'm looking at all the other Dracula movies on Wikipedia.
My two girls are women. They don't want to hunt spiders, but back to you with the Dracula.
Santo en el Tesoro del Dracula. De
Hell
Dracula. Yeah. El Santo versus Dracula, because that, honestly, that got me a little hype just saying it.
Yeah, that's like a good one.
Because I'm trying to figure out if that's the same as there was a Mystery Science Theater one where it was like Santo versus like a bunch of evil vampire ladies.
Well, okay, since we're talking about just random stuff right now, I feel
we're
like
just
I
kind
need
of
to bring
filling
this
time.
up.
Yeah,
because I feel like this episode's a little shorter than the other. But I just need to bring up. I just found out there's also a Bride of Frankenstein remake. What is up with everybody pillaging the old horror movies right now? What is going on?
I think it's like a cycle, because like,
I'm like, why are we? I mean, like, I respect it. I respect everybody making whatever movie they want to make, you know.
Because I think, well, you know, we had
but
this
I'm
kind
like,
of,
I don't know.
we've had this kind of boom where everyone was like super into like, oh, the 80s horror and the like Argento slasher horror, and I think also maybe some like world events also maybe tie into this, where like the themes of gothic horror are maybe a little more relevant again, because a lot of gothic horror deals with like class and economic shit and whatnot. And so I think for a lot of cultural reasons, people are just looking at gothic horror again, and when they think gothic horror, you get Universal stuff right there.
It's kind of interesting because I saw everybody eat the mummy up and spit it out.
With the hit mummy movie starring Tom Cruise.
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Starring Tom Cruise and the girl from Atomic Blonde.
God damn. And Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll for some reason.
Yeah.
Because they were like, we're gonna do Avengers but for monsters, and everyone was like, that's what? Why? And they were like, you're gonna love it, and everyone was like, no, we're not.
Everyone was like, I don't know.
Listen, we already had the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and you didn't want it when you knew what a good thing.
I stay there. I'm still there.
Yeah,
Bring me back some League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That is my shit. I love that. I love the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I want to talk about that on the podcast, but that's a little too far outside our window.
I will literally. I don't care. I'll break my I can't talk about a movie that's after the 80s rule to talk about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because I love it.
maybe that could be one of our special like milestone episodes.
Because the main reason I have that boundary in place is that I don't want to have to say something bad about like something recent, you know?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, critique is important or whatever, but like whatever. I feel like I also don't want to be commenting on stuff that influenced me, and like, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah, it muddies the waters as a creative, yeah.
Yeah, but I will gladly defend League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's perfect. It'll be like your version of my episode in the now may not exist season 0, where I just talked about how good Van Helsing was, and how everyone who doesn't like Van Helsing is wrong.
Yes, it will be exactly like that. But I do have to say, my headphones just died, so we should do our outro.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, we should. Yeah, we're just jawing now.
Oh my god, thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
sorry everyone. My headphones just died, so if you hear Evelyn a little bit in my background, I apologize for that.
This is a strange outro for a strange movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But we will see you guys next time as we turn the clock forward to 1972. To
1972. Also, we will have gone through the eclipse, so Evelyn and I will be changed women.
Yeah, and we'll be less. Maybe that's what's going on. We're experiencing actual lunacy right now. That's why we've been so loopy.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I feel like I'm in Gothic fighting my demons right now.
Straight up. I just stabbed myself.
Table, guys.
Oh, I just stabbed myself on a nail in the wall several times.
Oh, I thought. Oh my god! I thought you were.
Not in real life. I was referencing.
I was
the
like,
film Gothic,
OMG,
which you can hear.
Are you okay?
This is actually a good time to mention. Our original upload of the last episode was like kind of fucked up in terms of timelines, so we just started like. I didn't line it up right, so we just start talking over each other in an insane way because I edited things wrong. And by the time you hear this, there should be a re-upload. So if you missed our last episode, or if you were like, what the hell are they on? You can go back and hear our thoughts on Gothic in a much more coherent fashion.
It was the talking over that was funny, but like we kind of do that already, which is like totally fine. But like the part that really got me was like anytime you said anything, I would just have a way too long pause, and I was like, Jesus, why are you being such a bitch to Evelyn, Erynn? And I wasn't. It was just the audio was off.
Yeah,
that was wild.
So yeah, you could go back, check for that, and we will see you next time.
See you next time. Blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah. Everyone. Blah. Hey everyone, Evie here. If you enjoyed today's episode of Movies After Midnight, consider giving us the old like and subscribe so that you can stay up to date when we drop new episodes. If you didn't enjoy today's episode of Movies After Midnight, consider following me on one of the many social media platforms out there and leaving criticisms or strongly worded hate speech. Either way, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you next time.